I'd like to call the December 21st, 2021 Board of Public Safety meeting to order. I start with the approval of minutes from November 16th, 2021 regular session. Do I have a motion to approve?
We can't vote. That's the one I thought.
Well, I guess you're right. We'll hold that off. We can now. Yeah.
Free.
All right. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of the November 16th meeting, 2021 regular session?
Moved.
Do I have a second? Second. Great. Any discussion? May I have a roll call, please, Nicole?
All right. And just to clarify, because my speakers were kind of going out, Luis made the motion and Shruti seconded. Okay.
Correct.
Kim?
Yes.
Luis?
Yes.
Shruti?
Yes.
Motion carries. 2022 meeting
And Kim, I'm
dates.
just going to jump right in for a second and ask that, will you please certify that the executive session that we conducted this afternoon, set to commence at 5:30 p.m. December
Yes.
21st, 2021, was held to only discuss those matters stated by statute in our notice with regards to receiving information concerning status of an employee. You can confirm that that's all we talked about.
I confirm, I certify that that is all we talked about in our executive session held earlier today.
And that we did not take any final action.
And we did not take any final action. All right, can we move forward on the agenda?
Yep.
Okay, 2022 meeting dates.
There was one typo from the original packet that I sent out, I believe for the May meeting, that it should be the 17th and not the 11th.
To miss spring break, I take it.
So I did not factor in spring break for March, the March meeting.
Oh,
So if you
okay.
guys would like to move that, I guess now would be the time to discuss that.
We typically do that, I think, because so many of us are tied. Not
Yeah,
me
we've done
anymore,
that's done
yeah.
every year. We always move it off a week.
Mhm.
We either move it up a week or move it back a week.
So what is required? Do we need to vote on the proposed meeting dates or vote for a change of
Yeah,
them?
just ask for a motion to approve the dates as written, along with the one amendment for March.
Do I have a motion to approve the 2022 proposed dates for the Board of Public Safety as written, considering the proposed change in March that Nicole just reviewed?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Nicole, would you please call the roll?
Kim,
Yes.
Luis,
Yes.
Shruti,
Yes.
All right, motion carries. All right, next, Police Department business, report on monthly statistics and training.
Okay, for the month of November, 3,806 calls. As you can see, that is down from the previous month of October. There are a couple of categories that are somewhat concerning, although there is also some good news buried in here, and that is related to weapons calls. It looks like we had 7 in October, but we had 0 reported in the month of November. So that is somewhat of a highlight, and we are thankful for that. The categories that are of concern, though, would be a significant number. Let me take that back. There is a slight increase in the number of adult arrests, as per the graph that you see there. Below that, you have juvenile referrals. That was up 19 from the previous month of 7. I understand that many of those have to do with runaways, and that would be not only from private residences, but also from the Monroe County Youth Shelter, where we took reports from there. So mostly status offense of runaway. And then on the next page, we have domestic violence cases, and it looks like there was an increase there of 10 over the month prior. You see our hate crime reports. Obviously, it is not a reporting period. We would hope to be able to provide that by the January meeting. And then we move more to the narrative portion of the stats. For November, there was robbery of the Old National Bank on the west side of town. We were very fortunate to be able to find some video surveillance of the area where we were able to identify a truck. Ultimately, a suspect was taken into custody for that incident. We also have had an uptick in the number of theft from vehicles. Training hours, 47.5, which included the diversity, equity, and inclusion training that's been mandated by the city. We had several officers go through the pursuit intervention technique, commonly referred to as the PIT maneuver. And then we had the regular monthly training by CERT, Civil Disturbance Unit, as well as the dive team training. So we basically wrapped up all of our training for 2021. Community engagement events, as you might imagine, with Thanksgiving thrown in there, was down to 4. We also are contending with the upsurge in COVID and that type of thing, so we are not gathering. We had 13 BPD personnel involved for a total of 27 hours. So there was nothing scheduled for the month of December, again, because of holidays and then the uptick in COVID cases. Police social workers, total number of referrals was 37. Contacts was the busiest month to date for the program, and I feel somewhat like a broken record because it seems like almost every month we are able to report that those numbers continue to increase, which only indicates the success of that particular program. But they had 466 contacts, which is not only the November referrals, but also those involved in ongoing cases. And you can see there the highlights or wins, as they like to refer to those for the social worker. Community service specialist, 305 cases or calls, and then you can see the breakdown of the different things that they go on. They too have been very, very helpful in taking the load off of these sworn officers by being able to respond to a number of the minor type incidents. So that's it on stats. Looks like the next, I'm not going to try to steal your thunder, Kim, but it looks like the next thing would be letters of appreciation and commendation. And we had one, and that was from the 4th Street Festival, basically thanking officers for their help with making that a successful endeavor.
Chief, can I ask a question on moving back to the hate crimes?
Yes.
I like to believe the best in people, especially in Bloomington. I really do. But 0 for the entire year. Could you remind us, as far as how we keep track of that? I remember Chief Dekoff talking to us about changes in how we report those, or how the national report. I can't remember. Could you remind us, how do you explain that 0 for the entire year? That seems.
Well, it basically requires that someone is specifically targeted, because of race, religion, or something like that. And, we have to go by, it's listed as UCR stats and that type of thing. So there is criteria that qualifies that. And as per the qualifications, we have not, had any of those incidents. I know that there have been a couple of circumstances, at the mosque, for instance, where there was the vandalism and that type of thing. But it was determined that, it's my recollection that that individual really had no idea where he was. And he was known for being involved in acts of vandalism previously, and he just happened to find himself at that location. I certainly understand those associated with that facility, felt victimized as they were, but it did not indicate that it was specifically because of, who they were or what they stood for. That individual just picked a location. So that was one that might stand out as perhaps qualifying, but it did not, simply because it could not be determined that, they were targeted specifically because of, what they stood for.
Could I follow up on that very quickly? So then
Sure.
you use a passive voice. You said it was determined. And I wondered who does the determining about what qualifies? And I'm not pushing back. I'm just trying to understand how this happens.
No, I believe it was from an interview that took place with the suspect that was, ultimately arrested for that. So, and again, I understand that might be somewhat subjective as to how one interprets an answer. But I think that it appeared to the investigators that, it seemed to be legitimate that he really had no clue as to where he was or what he was doing. It was just an act of vandalism, and that happened to be the location. So that what I just read in the paper, there's a swastika issue. Somebody found a swastika last week, maybe. So you if I understand you correctly, that means that the investigator would come in and figure out if it's just a swastika on a wall, the definition doesn't quite meet that action. Well, I think what would need to be determined is perhaps the location of that. I understand that many might be offended by simply seeing that, on a wall in an alley or something like that. But if it were directed at individuals specifically, then I think that would be the further qualifier that would needed, because it would be directed at a specific group, if that makes sense. Okay. Then, yeah, thank you. Okay.
Thank you. Those are good clarifying questions. So purchase or general business, is there any general business to take care of tonight?
Nothing really, except for, and this will be covered a little bit in the personnel, but I will just throw this out as I've done before. The person who compiles all of these statistics that we provide to the board on a regular basis resigned and took a position with another entity. That being said, there may be somewhat of a learning curve for the person who we had hired. We were hoping to hire that individual as a second crime analyst, but that person quickly found themselves to be the solo, so we are back to one. So there may be somewhat of a learning curve with that individual as they try to learn the various systems that we have in place for providing statistics. So I will just say that January, we will probably focus more on looking ahead for the year 2022 and providing training and that type of thing. But I think it is, once again, a good time to perhaps revisit what this board would like, because I can't at this point guarantee that you will get, at least for the month of January and perhaps even February, you may not get what you have been receiving in the past because of the learning curve. But it might be a time to simply revisit and say, this is what we would like to have as a board in case we are asked by others in the community about how the department works. So I'm just putting that out there. So that might be a general business thing to consider. Otherwise, I think we're simply just trying to wrap up the year and deal with the holidays and everything so that we can move forward in 2022.
Okay, we'll plan on covering that. I think what I've heard the last few years anyway is that not having the information or the data in silos, but just knowing trends, where are things comparatively to last year, any other trends that we should be aware of.
Okay.
Does that mirror the other two of you on the call? Yeah.
Totally.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. All right, purchases, expenditures, procurements, anything we should be looking out for?
I've not seen anything major come through. I see that Captain Oldham's on the call. If he can chime in, if he knows of anything major that I have not seen, he may be more familiar with vehicles and that type of thing, because those would certainly be major expenses.
Yeah, there'll be at least 2 other vehicles coming before you if you haven't already seen them. They were replacement vehicles for, well, one is a replacement vehicle for one that was totaled in a crash from the insurance money that we received from that. And the other is just another vehicle that we still had money left for out of the line item that is normally attributed to vehicles.
Thank you. Alrighty, moving to personnel issues. Would you like to say a word or two about the 2 candidates that we are reviewing tonight for promotion to senior police officer?
I think if you read the summaries, you will find that, you know, they have contributed and done very well in their tenure here. And we certainly believe that because of what they've done and what they've accomplished, we believe that they are ready to take that next step up for the promotion within the sworn ranks. And that would be from the officer of first class to a senior police officer. And as I indicated previously on the agenda, I know that it indicates that if you approve them, we had initially asked for that to be December 27th, but we would like to retro that to December 13th. And then either before or after you get to those, I also have, you know, other personnel issues, but we can visit that whenever you choose.
Why don't we handle the other personnel issues first?
Okay. We currently have 88 sworn officers. And as I indicated, we did lose our crime analyst. Our new data analyst is Bradley Burleson, and he started on December 13th. We basically had 1 week to have him do a crash course in a number of different things, such as crystal reports, where you try to extract the data from the systems that we have here. So again, because of that short period of time, he's got quite a bit that he needs to take on and learn. I would also like to publicly thank Brittany Evans for all of the work that she did in trying to provide data to the board. It is her compilation of the information that you have been receiving for quite some time. So she just did a very, very good job, and she will be a major loss to the department. She's not going far, though. She will be out at the Indiana State Police Post as kind of helping with the Indiana Fusion Center. And we're told that we can still utilize her for some of the things that we might need where she can be helpful. So we will probably take her up on that. We had another officer get sworn in on December 13th as well, Franklin Jake Yost. We also have an officer who is returning from over a 1-year military deployment. So that officer, as well as Jake, will be starting the Indiana Law Enforcement Academy on January 3rd. We have 3 applicants from the hiring process that began in August, finally got in to get their medical and psychological. So we hope to be moving along with them. One of those is already certified. The other 2 are not. So needless to say, we will have to wait for then the next academy class to be able to send them along. And we currently have 4 officers in the field training officer program who seem to be moving along well. So, you know, we will pick up people as they come out of this program. But as you know, it is a very, very long process to get someone from point A to point B, that being from point of hire to the point where they can be on solo patrol and, you know, count toward our overall numbers of available officers.
Mm-hmm.
So, I also have 3 on extended medical time off. So, and that's it on that. Thank you.
All right. What is the net deficit right now of number of, you know, equipped trained officers versus the number that we should have?
We use the number of, you know, 100 or 105 basically. So, you know, we're down, you know, 20 plus. Well, not,
How
not 20
does,
plus, but
yeah, how does that compare to this time last year?
I don't know that we've gained much traction, honestly. So I think we are just kind of holding steady. I don't have that actual figure. But I think as we've tried to bring people on, we've also, lost people as well. So again, if Scott knows the actual numbers, feel free to provide that. But you know,
We are, sorry, Joe.
Go ahead, Scott.
Right now, as far as officers who can work solo patrol, we are in the low 70s right now for officers who can work solo patrol that are available to us right now.
Thank you for that. All right, moving to personnel issues. Do I have a motion for the promotion of Officer First Class Garrett Mitchell to Senior Police Officer effective December 13th, 2021?
So moved.
I second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, Nicole, would you please call the roll?
Kim,
Yes.
Luis,
Yes.
Shruti,
Yes.
Motion carries. Congratulations to Senior Police Officer, or he will be December, actually, now that we're doing retroactively, Senior Police Officer Garrett Mitchell. Congratulations. Do I have a motion for the promotion of Officer First Class Sarah Shannon to Senior Police Officer effective December 13th, 2021?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, Nicole, will you please call the roll?
Kim,
Yes.
Luis,
Yes.
Shruti,
Yes.
Motion carries. Congratulations to Senior Police Officer Sarah Shannon. All right, moving on to Fire Department business. Chief Moore?
Great, thank you. So for our statistics, we are now above 5,000 calls for the year, which is the first time in our history that's ever happened. That does represent, as of this month, a 25% increase over last year's call volume. We are tracking, we are looking, and again, like all the previous meetings, it's just kind of across the board, more of everything. For training hours and other stats, we have been down a fire inspector for a vast majority of the year. We'll get into it with the personnel, but we do have a replacement that has accepted an employment offer as of today. So we're hoping next year we will get back on track with those inspection numbers. But we have kept our head above water on all the new construction because we could actually stop the process and people can't move in if we don't get those done. Training hours for the month, we met our monthly goal. We are still on track to meet the annual goal. It will not be by much, but we will meet it. And there were no significant incidents that we need to discuss as far as fire or otherwise. I think you're muted, but we're going to get into letters of accommodation. There were two. We did have one where we do allow station visits. We try to keep them out in the bay, social distancing, masks. But we did have someone come by and send us a nice thank you note for showing their kid around the engine. And then there's another one from a company that we've done a little bit of work since we've been neighbors in our new building. Just working together, helping each other out. So.
Great. And general business.
So last meeting, we discussed this in depth about the lead paint. That issue is officially closed. The over 2,400 page report has been made available online. There are no physical test results to post for the lead blood testing, but none of those have come back with any traceable amounts of lead. We've had 5 firefighters tested. None of us really wanted it, but we had to get our certification, so we did it. We have tested 4 residents that have already gotten their negative results. And then on our last test date, which was this weekend, we had 1 more resident come in. Technically 2 came in when the first one was going through it, and they saw how much it was a pain to get your fingers poked and try to get the blood on there. The other person backed out, so that'll be 5 total tested. We do not anticipate it to come back with a positive for lead on that either. But we can say that issue is officially closed. If you read the press release, you'd get some highlights from it. There were hundreds of samples that were taken. Nothing was above an actionable level. For residential, it's 400 parts per million. In fact, nothing came back above 200 parts per million, which is an actionable level for like a garden. So where we're at is in a very good place. Cleanup is done. Contracts came in right at the not to exceed cost because we wrote the contract based on the expectation of work. It did not exceed that. So just a little over $118,000 is what the 2-week cleanup cost with all the environmental reports. And I am very happy to be closing the chapter on that and moving forward with other things. Other general business, most of our senior staff are taking off for the remainder of the year. A lot of us have vacation to burn, but we are gearing up for new positions next year. We are gearing up for potentially new headquarters location determination here soon. We can't talk about properties or anything, but there are discussions in where a new headquarters could be located at. And that is it for general business.
Thank you. And then as far as upcoming purchases, expenditures, procurements that we should be aware of.
I think there is a contract that we're going to discuss tonight. It still won't clear. You won't get a claim until they deliver, which may be as long as 18 months from now. So I don't know that we have any big expenses coming out this claim period, but we do have several vehicles that are waiting on delivery. The air cart contract that you have on your agenda tonight. And we do have a lot of encumbrances for money. So we were trying to do station remodeling projects and we just got the contracts done, but we did not get the money spent. So there are several of those that will be coming through, but nothing in this claim cycle.
All righty, that's it. All right, we're moving to personnel issues, and the first one being the review and approval of the settlement agreement for our JD Scott disciplinary matter.
Kim, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, there's a subsection to your expenditures, and there's a contract there. And I'm going to talk about that for a minute if you will allow me.
Absolutely.
Excellent. So the contract that's being looked at tonight is a contract between the fire department and a company called SCBAS, Incorporated. This contract is for the purchase of an Eagle Air model, lots of numbers, but it's basically a breathing air compression system. And what that will be is an opportunity to bring this machine with the fire department to fires, and they can fill up air compression tanks for the firefighters as they're getting ready to go back in and fight the fire. It has a not to exceed price tag of $134,706.43. The department believes that it is necessary and vital for their effective fighting of fires. I can certainly turn this over to Jason if you have additional questions about the machinery, but staff's recommendation is for the board to approve this contract. The reason why the contract's coming to you in this fashion is because there is a training component. When the apparatus is delivered on site, there will also be training provided by the company on how to use the machinery properly. With that training, it becomes a service contract. So we had to go through all the bells and whistles for a service contract, and that's why we're bringing it to you tonight for review and approval. Happy to answer questions if I can, or turn it over to Jason if I can't get the question answered properly.
I had a brief question, and my apologies for missing the executive session earlier. It's just a general question about contracts of this type or size. Is it the normal practice to, look at a couple of different bids or something like that for when there's a large purchase like that?
Yeah, so there are exceptions to the rule. That is the rule. The exceptions are many and varied. And one of them is if you go through the government contracting site where they've already received low bids for various machinery, various equipment, police cars, fire trucks. And that's what we did here. We went through government contracting. The price has already been, from the state's perspective, competitively arrived at. And so we don't have to go through the process of that competitive bidding, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that exactly answers my question, because I just wanted to clarify that we're being asked to, I guess, to okay this contract, but not whether we believe it's competitive pricing or anything like that, that we've been presented.
That's right. Yeah,
already.
if we'd have gone through a bidding process, what you would have first received was our presentation of those bids. We'd have opened them publicly. You'd have heard what those were. And then there'd be an assessment of which bidder was lowest and most responsive. And then we'd come back with a contract after, well, we'd come back and ask you to award the contract. Then we'd actually enter into the contract and bring that to you. So there'd be a lot of extra steps. But in this situation, because we're going through government contracting, we don't need to do all of those extra steps.
Okay, great. I just wanted to be able to rely on whatever the representation was about the pricing. So thank you.
Yeah.
And I'll say one more thing, if it's all right. This contract, before it arrives at your doorstep, has been reviewed by legal department and approved by me. I've then provided it to the controller's office, and they've gone through all of the vetting to make sure that we followed all of the statutory requirements that are necessary. They've approved the contract. It's gone to the mayor's office and reviewed by corporate counsel, actually, standing corporate counsel Mike Rooker, who also approved it. And so it comes to you having been heavily vetted, and we do, as a staff, recommend that it be approved.
Okay, thank you.
Good question. I am curious to know, Chief Moore, how long has this type of equipment or technology been available, and why now?
Yeah, this technology has been available for a long time. We have been getting to the point of being more mobile. Since my tenure here, it's been standardization and mobilization. This is one of the 10-year projects that have been, it's been on the 5-year list, waiting to get it. So essentially, the only time we'll run into an issue if it's a very large fire, and we have to spend a lot of staff time trying to move air cylinders back and forth from a fire station, getting them filled and back. And then we also run into issues with training, where, like when we were doing the recruit training, someone had to be dedicated to filling air cylinders basically all day for several weeks. So this tech has been out for a long time. As Mr. Wheeler is aware, there are not a lot of vendors that do this. It's not necessarily like a nice to have, but it is something that we need and we've needed for a while, just so we have that extra layer of resiliency, especially if like power goes out. We couldn't even fill air cylinders at our current location right now. So this is a critical need for us.
Thank you. All right, any other questions? Chris, do we need to vote on this?
Can I ask one final
Oh,
question?
yeah.
By the way, first, Mr. Wheeler, thank you for that, what you said about the process, and Sheree for the question. That was really helpful. That was my question, my first question about how we came to this moment. And that was really helpful to put that on the record. On the second, Chief Moore, you said that this is crucial. I forget the language now, but this is really important to us. It's crucial to us. It's something we need. And I'm wondering, we haven't needed it for this long. So I'm wondering, is this a common piece of equipment for cities of this size? Is it something that most fire departments have? Or how would you characterize this specific tool, I guess I would call it?
Okay, well, to very plainly answer it, it has been a priority, but when you talk about how bad our fleet was in the past years, it was not the same level of priority. So this is crucial that we have. Cities our size would have these. So, you know, again, it's something that we've needed for a long time, but in the grand scheme of getting to a scene or having air on a scene, this was not as high of a priority. And now we've completed the vehicle replacements. We're getting to those other priorities.
So you would say, just on that point, you would say this is not something, what's the word? This is something that we should have, must have, and we have waited to have it. It's not an extra, but rather something that we ought to have to do our job.
That is correct. This is not a frivolous expense or just a nice to have. This is something that we should have had a while ago. But again, when you talk about $500,000 to $1.5 million for a fire engine or an aerial truck, it was just something that had to be pushed a little further behind. And this year we are catching up on some of those lower priority, but they're still priority issues.
Okay, thank you.
One more question, Chief Moore, is this an actual line item in your budget?
Yes, it was already budgeted in our 2021 budget in our category 4 in line 451 for equipment purchase.
Great.
And yes, you will want to ask for a motion to approve the contract. Just as simple as that.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the contract?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, Nicole, will you please call the roll?
Kim,
Yes.
Luis,
Yes.
Shruti,
Yes.
Motion approved. All right, we're moving on to the review and approval of settlement agreement re J.D. Scott disciplinary matter. I think, Chris, you are going to read that.
Yes, I guess I was thinking you might cover other personnel matter first, but I'm fine to start with this. The settlement agreement, this settlement agreement is reached between the fire department and J.D. Scott firefighter first class. It is basically a reduction of the amount of time that J.D. Scott will need to be suspended. It's an agreement to reduce the time of the suspension that this board meted out. I'm going to read the agreement for the board and for the record. This is in regards to J.D. Scott, firefighter first class, disciplinary proceedings, agreed disposition of charges. This agreed disposition of charges is made between the Bloomington Fire Department by its fire chief, Jason Moore, and its attorney, Jennifer Lloyd, and J.D. Scott, firefighter first class, and his attorney, John Kautzman. The parties have agreed to the following, all subject to the approval of the Bloomington Board of Public Safety. Charges and procedural status, paragraph 1. J.D. Scott has been charged with a violation of Bloomington Fire Department rules and regulation 15.4, possession of a firearm inside a fire station. Firefighter Scott fully understands the nature of the violation with which he has been charged. That's paragraph 2. Paragraph 3, on September 22nd, 2021, the Bloomington Board of Public Safety notified firefighter Scott of its intention to impose discipline on this charge, specifically to impose a suspension without pay of 60 days or 20 working shifts. Paragraph 4, firefighter Scott timely exercised his right to request a hearing on the charge under Indiana Code section 36-8-3-4 subsection C, and this matter was set for a hearing to take place on November 29th, 2021. However, prior to the hearing, the parties reached this agreement, which, if approved by the Board of Public Safety, will resolve this matter without a hearing. Admission of factual basis, paragraph 5. Firefighter Scott admits that he violated Bloomington Fire Department rules and regulations 15.4 by possessing a firearm inside a fire station. Paragraph 6, in support of his admission, Firefighter Scott admits the following facts. Subparagraph A, on the afternoon of June 24, 2021, Firefighter Scott brought a handgun into Bloomington Fire Station 2. Firefighter Scott was not scheduled to work that day and neglected to remove his weapon before entering the station. The holstered handgun was concealed under his shirt. Subparagraph B, while he was at the station, a co-worker instigated a prank or joke that Firefighter Scott should clean out his locker to make space for another employee. Subsection C, thereafter Firefighter Scott went to the computer room at the station to check email. Subsection D, the co-worker followed and apologized to Firefighter Scott for the joke, stating that the co-worker didn't realize that Firefighter Scott was having a bad day. Subsection E, Firefighter Scott made a statement to the effect that, quote, if he were having a bad day, things would have gone differently, close quote. Firefighter Scott then lifted his shirt to display the handgun to the co-worker. However, Scott did not intend to threaten the coworker. Subsection F, firefighter Scott has been employed by the Bloomington Fire Department for 34 years and has no previous disciplinary actions. He has several commendations. Disposition of charges, paragraph 7. Firefighter Scott withdraws his request for a hearing on the charges. Paragraph 8, firefighter Scott will receive a suspension without pay for 33 days, which is 11 shifts. Such suspension to be served on dates determined by Chief Moore or his delegate in accordance with departmental scheduling considerations. Paragraph 9, firefighter Scott acknowledges that in addition to the terms set forth in this agreement, he is subject to shift and station reassignment by Chief Moore, according to management rights reserved to the fire department administration. Paragraph 10, should the Board of Public Safety withhold approval of this agreement, all provisions herein shall be null and void, and this matter shall be reset for hearing. In witness whereof, the parties have entered into this agreed disposition of charges on November 30th, 2021, and submit the same to the Board of Public Safety with the request that the board approve the terms and conditions thereof. It is signed by Bloomington Fire Department by Jason Moore, Fire Chief, and Assistant City Attorney Jennifer Lloyd. It is signed by J.D. Scott as firefighter first class and his attorney, John Kautzman.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve the settlement agreement?
So moved.
I second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Nicole, would you please call the roll?
Kim,
Yes.
Luis,
Yes.
Shruti,
Yes.
Motion carries. All right, moving to old business. Do we have any?
I'll jump in. Is there any other personnel issues that Chief Moore would like to discuss on behalf of the fire department?
Great. So we are down 4 positions. We do anticipate to be down 2 more from planned retirements in the very beginning of the year. We are going through the process of filling those proposed 6 vacancies with a March recruit class. As mentioned, we have made a selection on the deputy fire marshal position. So Jeff Yetmeyer, as of today, accepted that employment offer and will be starting with us on January 10th. So we are excited for him to be here. If the board would like, since this is an external hire, I can make sure that he will be present at the next meeting for an introduction. And we got 3 on long-term disability or what we call FMLA leave for surgeries or otherwise. Most of them are expected to make a full recovery and come back. And I think that concludes it for us.
Thank you, Chief Moore. All right, now moving to old business, if we have any. All right, CERT ARV deployment report.
0.
New business. Do I have a verbal certification of the payroll from November 5th, 2021, November 19th, 2021, and December 3rd, 2021 periods?
Police, yes.
And fire, yes.
Thank you. And now we'll move it open to the public. 3 minutes per person if we have anyone who would like to speak.
there are no members of the public.
All right, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I second.
We are adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you.